Hello everyone. Before we begin our descent, make sure to like and subscribe to Hush Ledger. Leaving a comment telling us where you re-listening from helps the algorithm keep you in the dark with us. Now, let's begin. Story 1. The Red Dirt Road. I never liked driving through Kansas. My girlfriend, Chloe, called it peaceful. She said the endless sea of wheat under that colossal sky was meditative. To me, it was just empty, a green and gold void that went on forever, punctuated only by the occasional skeletal grain elevator. We were on a 3-day drive from Pittsburgh to Denver, moving her out for a new job. The air in my old Honda Civic was thick with the smell of stale coffee and the synthetic cherry of the air freshener dangling from the rear view. The GPS had been acting up for an hour, losing signal, recalculating. My phone had no bars. Chloe was asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window, her breathing a soft, steady rhythm. The sun was beginning to bleed out along the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and purple. That's when I saw the detour sign. A temporary, flimsy-looking thing, bright orange with a black arrow pointing down a narrow, unpaved road that cut into the fields. Highway 56 closed 20 miles ahead. Use detour. I took it. The Civic bounced and shuddered as its tires met the washboard gravel. The dust kicked up in a thick, red plume, coating the windows in a fine, rusty film. I drove for what felt like 20 minutes, but the landscape never changed. Just endless fields on either side, the road a straight, unwavering line ahead. There were no farmhouses, no other cars, no signs of life at all. The only sound was the crunch of gravel under my tires and the low whine of the engine. That's when I saw the first one, a figure, standing at the edge of the field, maybe 100 yards away. It was just a dark, human-shaped silhouette against the dying light. I squinted, my hands tightening on the wheel. As I drew closer, I saw it was a scarecrow. An old, ragged thing, its burlap head slumped forward, stuffed with straw that poked out at ugly angles. Its arms were outstretched, crucified on a rough-hewn wooden cross. Something about it felt intentional, malevolent. I glanced over at Chloe, still asleep. A mile later, I saw another, identical, same slumped head, same outstretched arms, then another, and another. They were spaced almost exactly a mile apart, a macabre mile marker system leading me deeper into nowhere. The dust was so thick now I had to turn on my headlights, the beams cutting to weak, swirling tunnels through the red haze. The fifth scarecrow was different. This one. Its head wasn't slumped. It was looking directly at the road, at me. The crude stitching of its mouth seemed to be turned down in a frown. A cold trickle of sweat traced a path down my spine. I checked the GPS. It was just a gray screen now, the words nitrogen monoxide signal blinking mockingly. "Chloe," I said, my voice a rasp. I reached over and shook her knee. "Chloe, wake up," she stirred, groggy. "What? Are we there?" "No. We're lost. Look." I gestured out the window at the sixth scarecrow. This one was even closer to the road. Its outstretched arms were wrapped in what looked like strips of black plastic, fluttering in the wind. Its head was tilted. Chloe sat up, rubbing her eyes. She peered out at the scarecrow, then at the oppressive sameness of the fields. "Jesus, Mark, where are we?" "I don't know. The detour. It just goes on." We fell silent. The only sound was the thump, thump, thump of the tires over the washboard gravel, a rhythm that was starting to feel like a countdown. I saw the seventh scarecrow approaching. My blood went cold, voice drops to a whisper. It wasn't on the edge of the field, it was standing in the middle of the road. Its burlap face, in the glare of my headlights, had two dark, empty holes for eyes. And it was holding something, a long, thin object. "Mark," Chloe whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Stop the car." I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to hit the gas, to plow through the thing. But it was directly in our path. I slowed the car to a crawl, then a stop, about 20 feet away. The dust settled around us. The world was utterly silent. The scarecrow stood rigid, its arms held out. In its hands was a wooden plank. And nailed to the plank, in messy, dripping red letters, was a single word: turn around. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "It's a prank," I said, trying to sound convincing. "Some local kids messing around. Just back up," Chloe pleaded, her hand gripping my arm. "Please, just go back." I put the car in reverse and started slowly backing down the narrow road. It was difficult, the dust making it hard to see. After about 50 yards, I chanced a look in the rearview mirror. The scarecrow was gone. The road behind us was empty. "Where did it go?" Chloe gasped. I stopped the car, my mind racing. I couldn't see it in the fields to either side. It had just vanished. I shifted back into drive, my plan now to just get the hell out of there. I pressed the accelerator, the car lurched forward. And then we heard it, a sound from the roof. Scrape, drag, scrape, like something heavy was being pulled across the metal. Then a soft thud against Chloe's window. We both looked. Pressed against the glass was the burlap face of the scarecrow. The stitching of its mouth was now pulled up into a wide, grotesque smile, and from the two dark eye holes, a pair of very real, very human eyes stared in at us, white and unblinking. Chloe screamed. I slammed on the gas. The car fishtailed on the gravel, then shot forward. The thing on the roof scrambled, its fingers real, grimy fingers clawing at the edge of the roof above my door. I swerved violently, left and right, trying to throw it off. I heard a heavy, wet thud against the road behind us. I didn't look back, I just drove, my foot flat on the floor, the red dust flying. I don't know how long I drove like that, blind with terror. It felt like an eternity before I saw the glint of asphalt in the distance. We shot out of the gravel road and onto a smooth, paved county highway. I sobbed with relief. We found a gas station an hour later. The attendant, an old man with a face like a dried-up riverbed, listened to our frantic story without a hint of surprise. "Yep," he said, nodding slowly. "The Miller place, old man Miller and his boss. They don't take kindly to folks on their land. That detour sign of theirs. It shows up every now and then." He looked at my car, still caked in thick, red dirt. "You're lucky. Most folks who take that road, we just find their cars empty." He wiped his hands on a greasy rag. "The dirt out there, it's a special kind of clay. Stains everything it touches, a real bitch to get out." I looked at my hands, still clenched on the steering wheel. Under my fingernails, ground in deep, was the faint, rusty red of that Kansas dirt. A stain I can still see, no matter how many times I wash my hands. Sometimes, the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason. Story 2. The rest stop shadow. My dad always said the key to a good road trip was to avoid the main interstate rest stops. Crawling with weirdos and overpriced vending machines, he'd say. Find the state parks, the scenic overlooks. That's where you find a little peace. So, on my solo drive from Tucson to Missoula, that's what I did. I'd been on the road for 12 hours, my eyes gritty from caffeine and the relentless Nevada sun. My back ached. I needed to not be moving. I saw the sign for Whispering Pine Scenic Overlook just as the last sliver of sun disappeared behind the mountains. It was a 5-mile detour down a winding, 2-lane road that cut through a dense forest of ponderosa pines. The air coming through my vents cooled instantly, smelling of pine sap and cold earth. It was exactly the peace I was looking for. The overlook was a small, paved loop with 3 parking spots and a wooden guardrail overlooking a vast, dark canyon. It was completely deserted, perfect. I pulled my Jeep into the spot farthest from the entrance, killed the engine, and just sat for a moment, listening to the tick-tick-tick of the cooling metal and the sigh of the wind through the pines. It was the most profound silence I ever heard. I reclined my seat, planning to close my eyes for just 20 minutes. The fatigue hit me like a physical weight. My eyelids grew heavy, the sound of the wind a lullaby. I was just on the edge of sleep when I heard it, a car. The sound of an engine, rough and labored, coming up the access road. The crunch of tires on gravel as it pulled into the overlook. My pulse quickened. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. I heard the car, an old truck, by the sound of it pull into the spot next to mine. The engine cut out. Silence returned. I waited. 1 minute, 2. I could feel a presence, a weight in the air. I cracked my eyelids open the tiniest fraction, just enough to see through my passenger side window. It was an old, beat-up Ford pickup, caked in dirt. The driver was still inside. I could see the silhouette of his head and shoulders. He wasn't moving. He was just sitting there, staring straight ahead, or maybe staring at me. My heart started to thud against my sternum. He's just another tired traveler, I told myself. Just like you, he's enjoying the view. But the view was in front of my car. He was parked perpendicular to me, his driver's side window facing my passenger side. He was just looking at the side of my Jeep. Then, very slowly, the silhouette turned. I snapped my eyes shut, my breath catching in my throat. I could feel his gaze on me, through 2 layers of glass. I lay perfectly still, feigning the deep, regular breathing of sleep. The silence stretched, becoming a taut, vibrating wire. I could hear the faint creak of his truck's suspension, the sound of his door handle being pulled. My eyes flew open. I couldn't help it. The door of the truck was swinging open. A man, tall, gaunt, wearing a dark jacket, stepped out. He didn't stretch. He didn't look at the canyon. He took 2 steps and stopped, standing between our 2 vehicles, his back to me. He was just standing there. What is he doing? Then, he began to turn. It was a slow, deliberate pivot. I squeezed my eyes shut again, a cold sweat breaking out all over my body. I heard his footsteps on the pavement. Not towards his own car, not towards the overlook. They were coming towards my door. Step, drag, step, drag. He had a limp. The sound was agonizingly slow. I could smell him now, a sour, musky odor like old sweat and engine oil, seeping in through the vents. The footsteps stopped right outside my window. I could feel him there, a dark shape blotting out the moonlight. I was trembling, my fingers digging into the fabric of the seat. I prayed he couldn't see it. I heard a soft, wet sound. A sniff, then another. He was sniffing the air at the crack of my window. A low, guttural sound rumbled from him, not quite a growl, not quite a word. He stood there for an eternity, just breathing, just sniffing. I thought I was going to pass out from holding my breath. Then, the step, drag, started again. He was moving away, back towards his truck. I heard his door open, then slam shut. The engine turned over with a roar. I didn't move. I listened as he backed up, turned around, and drove away, the sound of his truck fading down the mountain road. I waited 5 full minutes before I dared to sit up. My body was shaking uncontrollably. I fumbled for my keys, my hands slick with sweat. I started the Jeep, slammed it into drive, and sped out of there, not caring about the winding road, my tires squealing on the asphalt. It wasn't until I had merged back onto the bright, safe, anonymous interstate that I'd finally let myself breathe. I pulled into the next brightly lit truck stop, surrounded by the comforting roar of semis, and parked under a floodlight. I sat there for a long time, just letting the normality of it all wash over me. I decided to check my Maps app to see if I could report that overlook as unsafe. That's when I saw it, in the photo I had taken of the canyon just before I tried to sleep. The photo was time-stamped. I had taken it just moments before the truck had arrived. The photo was beautiful. To deep purple of the twilight sky, to dark, dramatic shapes of the canyon. And there, in the bottom corner of the shot, captured by pure chance, was the edge of the parking lot. There was a figure, a tall, gaunt figure in a dark jacket, standing between the trees at the edge of the clearing. He was already there. He wasn't a fellow traveler who happened upon me, he was waiting. He had been watching me long before I ever heard his engine. I never found Whispering Pine Scenic Overlook on any map again. And I never, ever pull over to rest where the silence is too deep. Story 3. The Caravan. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. Me, my wife Sarah, and our 6-year-old daughter, Lily, in a rented RV, chasing the autumn colors through New England. For a week, it was perfect, postcard villages, maple syrup everything, Lily's laughter echoing from the bunk in the back. The RV itself was a lumbering, 30-foot beast, but it felt like a castle on wheels, our own little moving fortress. The trouble started on the 8th day, somewhere in the dense, endless woods of northern Maine. We'd gotten a late start, and dusk came early under the thick canopy of pines. The GPS was struggling, the map showing us on a thin, meandering state road that seemed to be leading us deeper and deeper into nowhere. Maybe we should find a place to pull over for the night, Sarah said, her voice tight. She was navigating, her finger tracing the squiggly line on the paper map we'd bought as a backup. This doesn't look right. Just as she said it, we rounded a bend and saw them, tail lights. A line of them, maybe 6 or 7 vehicles, crawling along at a steady 20 miles per hour. It was a weird mix of beat-up sedan, a minivan, a few pickup trucks, and at the very front, what looked like an old, boxy hearse. A caravan. Great, I muttered, easing off the gas. A funeral procession. In the middle of the woods, we followed them for what felt like an hour. There was no place to pass. The road was too narrow, with a steep drop-off on one side and a solid wall of rock on the other. The vehicles maintained their perfect, slow formation. No one sped up, no one slowed down. They just crawled. Why are they going so slow? Lily asked from the back, her small voice laced with boredom. I don't know, sweetie, Sarah replied, but she shot me a look, a "this is weird" look. That's when I noticed the details. The cars were all caked in a uniform layer of grime and dried mud, obscuring their license plates. Their windows were tinted an impossibly dark, reflective black. I couldn't see a single driver, not a silhouette, not a shadow. It was as if the vehicles were driving themselves. Then, the lead vehicle, the hearse, slowed almost to a stop. Instantly, every other vehicle in the line did the same, a perfect, synchronized reaction. My heart hammered. Was this it? Were they stopping for us? The hearse's brake lights glowed like two malevolent red eyes in the deepening gloom. It sat there, idling, for a full 30 seconds. Then, without any signal I could see, it began moving again, and the entire line smoothly accelerated back to their funereal 20 miles per hour. David, this is really freaking me out, Sarah whispered. Me too, I admitted. Next chance I get, I'm passing them. The chance came 10 minutes later. The road widened slightly, a straightaway with a clear view for a few hundred yards. I gripped the steering wheel, signaled a pointless, human gesture for this procession of ghosts, and pressed the accelerator. The RV's engine groaned in protest. As I pulled alongside the first pickup truck, I made the mistake of looking over. The tint on its window was absolute, a sheet of black glass. But as we drew level with the hearse at the front, something changed. The driver's side window of the hearse began to roll down. Don't look, Sarah said sharply, but it was too late. I looked. There was a man in the driver's seat. He was pale, impossibly so, his skin the color of old paper. He wore a simple black suit, and he was smiling at me. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a wide, practiced, empty stretch of the lips that didn't touch his eyes. His eyes were just dark. He lifted a hand, not in a wave, but with his fingers splayed, pressing his palm flat against the air in a silent, universal gesture of stop. Then he pointed, a single, pale finger, pointing ahead of us, down the road. My blood ran cold. I slammed my foot on the gas, surging the RV past the line of vehicles. I didn't look back. In my rearview mirror, I saw the hearse's window roll back up, and the entire line continued on, undisturbed, as if we had never been there. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "What did he want?" "I don't know," I breathed, my knuckles white on the wheel. "I don't know." We drove in terrified silence for another 20 minutes, putting as much distance between us and that caravan as we could. The woods began to thin, and the relief was palpable. We saw a sign for a small town just 5 miles ahead. We were going to be okay. That's when we saw the flashing lights, red and blue, painting the trunks of the trees. A state trooper's cruiser was parked sideways, blocking the entire road. 2 more were behind it. Officers in tactical vests stood behind their open doors, rifles raised. "Oh, thank God," Sarah sobbed. I slowed the RV to a stop and rolled down my window, my hands visibly shaking on the wheel. A trooper, his face grim, approached cautiously. "Sir, step out of the vehicle slowly," he commanded. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "Officer, thank you," I stammered as I climbed out. There was this line of cars back there, a hearse. They were following us. It was terrifying. The trooper's expression didn't change. He looked past me, into the RV, at Sarah and Lily's frightened faces. Another officer was already leading them out. "We've had reports of a suspicious RV matching this description," the trooper said, his voice flat and official. "We received a tip. We need to search the vehicle." "A tip? For what?" I asked, bewildered. They didn't answer. They moved with a grim, efficient purpose. They searched every cupboard, every compartment. They pulled up the floor mats. They emptied our suitcases onto the roadside. And then, one of them emerged from the small storage hatch under the master bed. In his gloved hand, he held a large, sealed plastic bag. It was full of a white, powdery substance. I felt the world drop out from under me. "That's not ours," I shouted, my voice cracking. "We've never seen that before. You have to believe us." The trooper just looked at me, his eyes full of a cold, weary pity. "Sir, we've been tracking a drug smuggling operation that uses rental RVs on this route for months. They plant the product on unsuspecting tourists as a diversion. While we're dealing with you, the real mules get through clean." He paused. "You said you saw a hearse." I could only nod, my throat sealed shut with terror. "They're the lookouts, the scouts," he gestured to the bag. "This was their way of making sure we'd be preoccupied with you." As he read me my rights, I looked over at Sarah and Lily, who were being put into the back of a separate cruiser. Lily was crying. Sarah met my eyes, her face a mask of utter betrayal and confusion. "They held us for 18 hours. It took 3 lawyers and our life savings to get the charges dropped, once they confirmed our story and tracked the rental company's records. We were just patsies, a disposable piece in someone else's game. We never got our deposit back on the RV. The rental company cited biohazard cleanup fees. When I asked what they meant, the man on the phone was evasive. Finally, he sighed. "Sir, our cleaners found something in the wastewater holding tank. The one you're not supposed to open except at a dedicated station." "What?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Fingerprints," he said, his voice quiet. "Dozens of them, inside the tank, as if someone had reached in." I sat there, the phone slick in my hand, remembering the pale man in the hearse. His splayed fingers, his pointing hand. I thought of the perfect, synchronized line of cars. They weren't just following us, they were hurting us. And they had marked their property long before we ever picked up the keys. The castle on wheels was never a fortress, it was a Trojan horse. And we were the fools who dragged it right through the gates. If you have a story you'd like to share with the Ledger, send it to our email. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more true horror stories every week. You're not just listening. You're bearing witness. Good night.